watching WeAllBe News Radio, News Free Dixie for the 21st century. I'm Thaddeus Matthews.
I saw the Charlie Kirk homegoing celebration. I looked at the whole thing. About, it had like an hour-long concert, whatever. It's about 8 hours of stuff. And I thought it was well done. But what I've been thinking about lately, are we witnessing the Fourth Reich? Is this the Fourth Reich we're witnessing? I say that because I think about Baba Dick Gregory. Man, Baba Dick Gregory would love what's going on right now. It would have been awesome to get his tape, but he gave his tape before he went away. Kind of writes his ancestor. Baba Dick Gregory communicates with me all the time. And he talked about his biggest fear, or his fear. I ain't gonna say his biggest fear, but his fear was the Trump's shadow. Like Trump's shadow was his fear. And people will try to say, well, he was afraid of the Trump administration. No, he wasn't afraid of Trump, the man or the administration. His concern was going to come behind or after a Trump administration. Trump's shadow. We're living in Trump's shadow now. And I'm thinking about myself, when people talk about the 60s, they over romanticize the 60s. They always talk about this is like the 60s. This is not like the 60s. This is like the 1930s. What the time we're living in is the 1930s on steroids. Because what they don't talk about, that's why I do what I do, because we're not talking about, there was an age of assassinations during the 1930s. It was the age of the demagogue. We had all these people. This is before social media, be on radio. You had Father Coughlin outside Detroit, broadcasting to 45 million listeners, having an influence on the vote. A preacher at the Catholic Church from Canada, a Canadian import, 45 million listeners weekly, railing against not only the politics, but railing against the Federal Reserve and the international banker conspiracy. That's Father Coughlin. You had U.S. Senator Huey Pierce Long, out of Louisiana, former governor of Louisiana, somebody who was like a Charlie Kirk in a way. Some people look at him as a demagogue. He had loyal followers throughout the country. He had his Share the Wealth movement. Charlie Kirk had Turning Point USA. He had Share the Wealth movement. We had millions of followers. But one thing about Huey Long, I guess Charlie Kirk, he gave a lot of light to black conservatives. Like Candace Owens is a protege of Charlie Kirk. Huey Long is the inspired black people in Louisiana. He started an adult literacy program to help teach not only poor whites how to read and write, but also poor blacks how to read and write. Matter of fact, Huey Percy Newton, co-founder of the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, is from Louisiana. He's born in Monroe, Louisiana. He is named for Huey Long, a white man, because his family thought that Huey was great. They thought Huey Long was for everybody. This is at a time he's in the Deep South where they were using racial politics to keep white power by keeping us divided and conquered. He was trying to bring everybody together, every man a king. He was also assassinated in Baton Rouge. He was shot at the Capitol September 8th, 1935. That's over 90 years ago, y'all. Guess what, though? He died in New Orleans September 10th, 1935. Who died in Utah September 10th, 2025? That's 90 years later. That's Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk was a master podcaster and a propagandist, and I guess debater. Huey Long was a master communicator as well. He used radio to reach millions of people. They didn't have social media back in the day. You had people like Father Divine, Amy McPherson, he's evangelist, Father Coughlin. He had all these they would have been social media influencers today. But you only had like 3 networks in their infancy, right? Back in those times. This is 1930s. So what they said, I think it's interesting. Nobody's talking about how Charlie Kirk compares and contrasts with what happened to Huey Long 90 years ago. Huey Long also had aspirations for the White House. He was a big supporter of the New Deal by Franklin Roosevelt. Also, Charlie Kirk helped Donald Trump secure the youth vote. He helped Donald Trump get elected. He inspired Donald Trump to embrace TikTok. Donald Trump at one point was anti-TikTok. Now it's Trump talk. I guess it's Trump talk now. I think that America brought TikTok from China, but he utilized TikTok to get his message out. But Charlie Kirk helped secure millions of votes of the youth vote for Donald Trump. And some people believe that he would have been president and had aspirations to be president within the next 10 years. Charlie Kirk, people say he could have been president one day. And he was assassinated in a state that was founded by Mormons. Their leader, Joseph Smith, the founder of the Mormon faith that's headquartered in Utah, that's their state, he was assassinated. He allegedly in history was the first U.S. presidential candidate assassinated in U.S. history. They lynched him out in Illinois. That's the birthplace of Charlie Kirk, Illinois. So they said Charlie had aspirations. Huey P. Long had aspirations. First, he was a big supporter of the New Deal. Then he became a big critic of the New Deal. And he was a threat to the dynasty, to the Franklin Roosevelt's empire or administration. Because Franklin Roosevelt ended up winning 4 terms, right? He didn't finish the 4th term. Harry Truman finished the 4th term for him. But he was elected to office. But Huey Long was a threat. He had enough people to break away from the Democratic Party. He had millions of followers throughout the country. He could have had his own MAGA back then. Because people don't understand, MAGA is not really the Republican Party. It's not really the Republican Party, right? It used the infrastructure of the Republican Party to grow it. It's a movement. MAGA is bigger than both political parties. So Huey Long had a chance to have his own MAGA movement back in the 30s, but they assassinated him. So I don't see why people not making a comparison between Charlie Kirk and Huey Long, who both had millions of followers, who both were critics and could have just went their own way. And Huey Long's wife, I believe, finished his Senate term. And Charlie Kirk's wife is the CEO of Turning Point USA now. So she stepped into his footsteps. And that machine, the Huey Long machine, outlasted him for decades. His brother Earl Long became power. A lot of people. So that Turning Point USA thing, that machine can last for decades and have an impact on public policy in this country. But I'm going to close it out. I was talking about comparing Charlie Kirk to Huey Long. Both of these are iconoclastic figures in American history. What's interesting about Huey Long, it is alleged that Dr. Carl Weiss, the Jewish American, shot Huey Long when he confronted him at the Capitol building in Baton Rouge on September the 8th, 1935. Allegedly, Huey Long had made very powerful political enemies. I think Dr. Carl Weiss was defending the honor of his father-in-law, who I believe was a judge whose career was in the crosshairs of Huey Long, a political machine. They were trying to do some gerrymandering and stuff like that. I think it got passed. So allegedly, Carl Weiss approached Huey Long with his arm. Huey had all these armed bodyguards around him. There was death threats on his life because he was a very powerful, polarizing figure in not only state politics, but also national politics. He was a real threat to Franklin Roosevelt in the 1936 election. He actually wrote a book that was, I believe, published posthumously called My First 100 Days in the White House, where he had a cabinet of rivals, like people that would be his political rivals, were put in places of importance in his cabinet. So this came out after he died. I read the book years ago. It was an interesting book. He truly was a visionary. But allegedly, Dr. Carl Weiss shot him. My understanding, Dr. Carl Weiss either punched him in the face or slapped him because he had a bruise on his lip. When he was lying in state, you see the bruise on his lip. So some people claim that Dr. Carl Weiss didn't have a gun. He just hit Huey Long. But the bodyguards responded by shooting him up like Swiss cheese. When they exhumed his body, Dr. Carl Weiss' body was exhumed back in the early 90s. They said he had like 60 bullet wounds inside of his carcass. So I guess he was hit 60 times by the bodyguards. But some people believe that Huey got hit by one of his bodyguards, friendly fire, ricochet, whatever. And some people allege that somebody went into Dr. Carl Weiss's car to get his gun, retrieve his gun, which was in his car allegedly, and place it at the scene of the crime. I don't know. But Dr. Carl Weiss was Jewish. Ernest Hemingway allegedly claimed that when he was in Paris, he had a skylight at his home fall on his head. He had real bad Nash that stayed with him for the rest of his life, the scar on his head. He alleged that Dr. Carl Weiss, when he was a resident in France, gave him his stitches on his head. His 9 stitches were done by Dr. Carl Weiss, the alleged assassin of Huey Long, before he became, whatever. People claim Kirk was taken out by some Zionist forces, by maybe Mossad, by maybe Netanyahu, how Kanye Oye would say. I don't know, man. But I just thought there's interest. I want to make sure I let people know about the eerie coincidence between the life and death of Huey Long and Charlie Kirk, who both died. They died 90 years apart. History don't always repeat, but it does rhymes. It rhymes. Okay. So thank y'all.